Michael Ashley here for Anthropology136e. Talking about imaging workflows and specifically our winnowing process, and then I'm going to take us into Lightroom and show us how we can actually do this. So working from the bottom to the top, first thing that happens is we actually do the shoot, and as a photographer you're going to produce a lot of media. You're going to produce this media, and you'll then following our importing video, you will have imported these items into Lightroom, made some selections, and archived the images that you aren't going to share while pushing along the images that you do need to share to your team as copies, or as what we'd call derivatives of those originals. So we're giving a 1-star rating to any image that is worthy of sharing with the team, and we're going to use the blue label for any image or media video file, even sketches that might be scanned in that are useful for documentation. Then as a team, the creative director and editor, but also the whole team, will get together and take a look at the individual items and also try to figure out what it is that the client wants. So is it a series of images that represent a particular place or a particular shooting technique? And whatever it might be, you're going to make additional selections as a team to 2 stars, and making a selection of the documentation media that help to convey the ultimate story. Adding in descriptive metadata and as well as full descriptions that can be associated with each item, and pushing those along by simply saving the metadata back to those files. Then as a class we'll be able to take a look and just sort through the 2-star images and ultimately make a decision about those which we feel are worthy of publishing on our Flickr site. So that's the process. And it is a winnowing process. If we were to simply put all of the media into our Dropbox without any form of editorial assessment, we would have literally thousands of images on any given week. So this is just as I'm saying, a rough guide to our winnowing process, but it should work something like this. As an individual photographer, you might produce 100 images, of which you're going to keep 80 because they are pretty good, but you had some blinks and blurs and things went wrong along the way, and so you've deleted, say, 20% of them, let's just say, for example, from which, given the particular assignment as a photographer individually on your particular scene that you're shooting for, you might star 10 of those, from which your creative director might choose 2 and we as a class might choose 1. So that's kind of a 1% way of rating these images. However, with documentary content, the winnowing will be much lighter because the documentary content is so important. So we're looking here on average of starting with 20 unedited, and shooting multiple shots, maybe a couple aren't really that useful, so we're going to take that all the way down to 8. So as you can see throughout this whole process, that we might come up with a total of 100 items to represent a given week. That's with 20 people being involved in the process. So this is an idealized view of what we're trying to accomplish. So here we are in Lightroom, and we have a particular shoot that we've done, and in this case, starting where we left off last, we have a series of images here that are representing different shutter speeds of this particular cow skull. So I'm going to double click on the first one here and take us through the process of making some selections. And there are, if we take a look down here at the strip, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 images, and with the metadata we can see here, let's just watch what happens to our f-stop in this particular series: f8, f9, 11, 14, 18, and 22. So what I like to do is I like to go through and make a first pass before I make any decisions, and I've decided, these all work out pretty well here. I can see the focus changing, and this one's sticking out. So I'm going to go ahead and reject that image by simply saying X. X for reject, and you can see it's turned gray there. But I'm going to go ahead and 1-star this first image by hitting the 1 key. And I'm going to 1-star the 11. I'm going to 1-star the 18 and the 22. So I'm going to give my creative director 4 images to choose from. Okay, now that we've made some editorial selections, I'm going to do a couple of additional housekeeping things on these particular images. So we're going to make a selection using the attribute function here, which was also could be done by Control or Command F. Command F on a Mac or Control F on a PC. And the attribute I want is 1-star or above. I'm going to select all these, and we're going to add a creator here. In this case, it's Adriana Haro, who is the photographer. I'm going to add that to these items. Select them all, and of course, very important to save the metadata to the files. Now, these particular items are DNG format, so even better than that would be to get into the habit of also updating DNG previews and metadata. Now, if you're only making metadata changes, this particular updating of the previews takes a lot of additional time because it's updating previews. If you haven't made any changes using the develop module, then there's no reason to do this. You can just go ahead and save metadata. So a little tip that will save you some time there. Once this is done, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and export these images to the team folder. And to do that, we come up here to File, Export, and we're going to come here to Export to Hard Drive, and we're going to say Export to a specific folder, and choose that folder. And this is when you're going to save stuff to your Dropbox. So each week there will be a specific folder set up for your team. So in this case, there would be a Team 5 Assignment 3 folder. Week 3, Team 5, Scene 1 or Scene 2. Team 5 only did 1 scene. Camera 1, Camera 2, Camera 1. And this is where we're going to save these files. So I say choose. So that's what you're doing. You're making your selection. You can see here in the little tooltip that it's going to be going into Assignment 3, Week 3, Team 5, Scene 1, Camera 1. That's exactly where I want these to go. And under File Settings, very important to set this to Original, because that way if you have documentary videos, those will also copy. And when you're ready, simply hit the Export button to export the files. Now typically, and what is causing people confusion is, typically what would happen is once you've exported files and you've created what's now, as I'm calling, a derivative file, time will pass, edits will be made, changes will be made to these files, and then at some point you might be bringing those back into a Lightroom catalog to take a look at them. But for our process, if I want to see the stuff that's in my team folder, I'm going to go ahead and import those items back in as new files. So to do that, we go to Import Photos. And as always, we're going from left to right, top to down. But in this case, the source we're selecting is our hard drive, the Dropbox, and we're coming down here to Team 5 Assignment 3. And there are the 4 items. Now, even though I said don't import suspected duplicates, these items are going to import because they are in a different location. And up here, it will be Add, will be the option for adding these items to my catalog. And I go ahead and hit Import. Now we can see the items have been imported properly. And under my Dropbox, I will now have a folder called Anthro136eSP11 Team 5 A3. And here are the 4 items. Now as a creative director, I can come in and I could pick these items and, for example, give this a rating of 2 stars. And for the team to be able to see that rating, I'd simply need to come back up here again and save the metadata to the file. And that is the complete workflow for getting your content as an individual photographer into your team folder shared so that your creative director and your team can make additional decisions, and then we as a class can make ultimate decisions about the images.